Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Tuesday, the 5th of March. Is it the 5th of March? It is the 5th of March.
It is the 5th, yeah.
Go me. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm delighted to say we're joined. A rare occasion we get you on, Jonny, but a treat for the viewers on Tuesday. We've got you on to talk all things Rangers.
I'm looking forward to it. A treat or some sort of pain, Derek, yeah, depending on how they see it.
Whatever way, I'm sure it'll be entertaining nonetheless. Before we get
Hot
stuck
takes ahoy, Derek, they're coming.
Quick word for podcast sponsors, the MPH Group. If you're looking for home improvements, these are the guys to call, as you all know by now. The all-important links are in the description below. And just as you can see the ticker below, if you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or indeed Instagram, where we have been live recently, we've got two great offers on the website just now. If you haven't subscribed, now is the time to do so. You can subscribe for £4 for 4 months, or you can take out a year subscription for £18. Stevie was on yesterday, and you can also get an extra 10% off if you use the code Clifford10. So an extra incentive as well there, folks. So do go and check it out. There's a great piece on the website this morning from Chris, a big long read on Alex Ray and how he'll be on the bench, of course, on Thursday in the role he's playing in Philip Clement's backroom staff. So yeah, I'd urge you to go and check it out. It's well worth a read. Also on the website yesterday, Jonny, and I think we'll kick off with this. Giovanni van Bronckhorst has given an interview to 442 magazine where he talks about his departure from Rangers and the time, of course, when Michael Beale ventured up to Ibrox when he was under pressure for the Aberdeen game. He's spoken about that as well. I'll read you what he says, some of the quotes from this, folks. Very interesting. Just on his departure, he says he felt let down by the Rangers board before he was sacked. He said, as far as I'm concerned, our squad could have been strengthened after we reached the Champions League group stage that August at PSV's expense. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. When I got fired a few months later, I missed the support from above. Things didn't go well at that stage, especially when we fell 9 points behind Celtic. That isn't allowed, but it's also good to look at the broader picture. I believe some guys on the board could have handled the situation in another way, especially if you assess how we performed in the previous campaign, but that's quickly forgotten. I had other meetings with the board in November 2022 and told them what needed to happen to turn things around. And on his feelings for the club after his time as manager, he says, I hope Rangers can find their way back to the top, as I'll forever be associated with the club and cherish the wonderful memories. Sadly, I didn't leave in the way I wanted. What do you make of that, Jonny? I know at the time, I remember when I was over at the game in Amsterdam, the game against Ajax, the first Champions League game. He was asked at Gio about whether he was happy with the squad that he had, and I get why he said that he was at that point in time. He's not going to come out and lambast the board, is he? But now he's saying that he should have been backed, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, the thing is about that, and I know a lot of people agreed with it at the time, when you look at Rangers' accounts, it wasn't like the club has been swimming in money. There wasn't a lot of money there because of changes to the Champions League, which meant that it wasn't as lucrative fundamentally when Rangers finally reached the Champions League as it has been in the past because of the way they changed the money model, so that I think Rangers were 31 out of 32 clubs on the list, and it's where you rank in the list depends on how much money you get guaranteed. So they didn't actually make much more out of the Champions League. It was something like $1 million more than they would have from the Europa League run. And this was something that I interviewed Stuart Robertson about at the time. And, the interview was widely panned, I think, because people just didn't believe. But the facts are the accounts are there and there to be seen. So there wasn't the money to go out and kind of back Gio with a couple of £5 million signings, I don't think, without being irresponsible, which is a real shame. But it's because of UEFA and the way they are changing the goalposts around the Champions League to try and give more money to the big clubs, and fundamentally that's what happened there. I think Gio, though, is right to feel that he was badly treated in some regards. he had to go when he went. For me, I think he had a brilliant time in the Europa League. He was unbelievable in that run, and people will always remember that, Derek. But domestically, no, it just wasn't working. He signed a lot of players in that summer. A lot of problems with injuries. He couldn't get to the bottom of the injuries in the way I think a lot of Rangers managers have suffered with.
Yeah,
you see Philippe Clement now trying to kind of implement a real rotation system. I don't know what it is with Rangers and injuries. I'd love to ask Philippe Clement about that in the next presser, to be honest. Is it a combination of the pitches, some plastic, some grass poor, the weather, the physicality of the game in Scotland, the lack of protection for referees, plus a group of players that have got injury problems? What is it? I'm assuming that these myriad issues, and it's complex. So Gio suffered from that as well. But for me, Derek, I know. Listen, when you lose your job, or if you leave a company and you're unhappy about the way you've left, you're always going to be sore about it. But I think when he left Rangers, he had to go. Yeah. The Michael Beale stuff that he also talked about is separate, though, obviously, and that's something that perhaps we can delve into.
Yep, let's do just that. So on, of course, Beale's trip to Ibrox, where he sat in the director's box for that game against Aberdeen. He was under a bit of pressure from Bronckhorst in the time, but they won convincingly that day. He said, I don't think you should really do that as a fellow manager. You shouldn't sit in the stands at a match when your colleague is feeling the pressure at that moment. I would never have done that. So that's what he said on that. Beale talked about that, incidentally, back in December 2022, just shortly after he was appointed. He says, I'd been away a year. My plan was always to come back and do a game as a fan, really. I'd always wanted to come up and watch Rangers as a fan over the years, and then found myself working here inside. That trip was planned 5 or 6 weeks previously. If that's the perception, I hope Gio doesn't think that, because it certainly wasn't my intention. I just came back to watch the game and see a few people I hadn't said goodbye to in the community I lived in. Not entirely buying that, Jody. I think that was a bad move from Michael Beale. The optics looked terrible. He should have read the room, and I think, in hindsight, I think he would have forgotten that trip if he was to look back on it. What's your feelings on that one?
Yeah, I would be surprised if Michael Beale didn't feel that, looking back at it, it wasn't the best thing because of how it's been perceived. I'm not convinced, Derek, that he was trying to put pressure on Giovanni van Bronckhorst.
Harry Watling was there alongside him, so it wasn't as if he's come up himself.
No, but I think it was a case of... Listen, I was at the presser when Beale talked about this. I think it was a case of, Michael Beale loved his time at Rangers, and he loved Glasgow, and he was intending to come back, and he had a break, and he said, look, come up and have a look at this. This is an incredible club. You won't believe the atmosphere. Come up and have a look around with me. We'll have a good day out. I don't think he deliberately went in to kind of say, look, I'm here for this job. I think Michael Beale always would have been behind the scenes thinking about coming back to Rangers at some point, but I don't think he would have been thinking about it happening then and there, or within weeks of that happening. Now, I might be incredibly naive. I might be totally wrong, but I don't think that was at the heart of why he did it. So that's my take on it, Derek. I know you've got a different take, and that's totally
I think
understandable. But I think having spent time with Michael Beale in press conferences and stuff like that, I just don't think he would be deliberately trying to put the pressure on Gio. And I think Gio could have still. It wasn't like Gio was on the verge of the sack at that point.
It was under pressure, and Beale was mooted at that point as a potential replacement. I think he just turned down Wolves. I don't know if you can correct me if I'm wrong, folks, in the comments.
I think you're right. I think he hadn't long turned down Wolves and had that interview when he said, look, I'm not ready to leave QPR at the moment.
But listen, there's a comment come in from Ian McPhee as well. He says, surely other managers can come and take in a game at Rangers. They absolutely do. You'll see managers at various games, of course, so no issue with that. I just think that the optics, the timing for me is a big thing with regards to that. If he came up, say, for example, the Leipzig game or whatever, when Rangers were on that run, then I don't think there would have been an issue. But just at the time when Gio was just under a bit of pressure, it just didn't didn't look good for me. But there you go. That is, you can read more about that, folks, on the Rangers Review website. Do go and check it out. Fast forwarding to the here and now, Johnny, of course, we've got a huge game coming up on Thursday. We go into the game off the back of a defeat. Rangers, Benfica not in the best of form either after being hammered on Sunday night by Porto. That defeat of the weekend, do you think that can act as a bit of a reset? I was speaking about this with Stevie yesterday, and I mean, Clement said he expected this to come earlier in his reign. Rangers have been on a fantastic run. Think this could act as a bit of a wake-up call and they can go on another extended run, do you reckon? Or are injuries starting to bite?
Do you know what, Derek? I hope that Philippe Clement has basically almost ignored the game, because I think what he should be trying to do from a psychological point of view is to really get the players to believe that that game against Motherwell was a freak result. Because if you look at it, if you look at the data around the 3.31 or 3.7, whatever it was, depending on where you get your data, I think StatsBomb had it at 3.7. I mean, Rangers should have scored, should have won the game, quite comfortably, but there was missed chances. Watching it again, Derek, you know, I watched the highlights, having watched it live, and I couldn't believe that some of the chances that were missed actually even didn't register watching the game live. So, for example, like Fabio Silva's shot, that's a gilt-edge chance. That's got to be in the back of the net, and he puts it straight down the keeper's throat. So there was a number of opportunities like that. It was a bit scrappy. Rangers certainly weren't at their best. The defence was awful. So you've got a day where the strikers aren't at their best and the defence is really poor. It's like a perfect storm. But for me, Clement should almost be like, right, we've got away with one. Bad days happen. Here's why it happened, and show them the missed chances. If we put these chances in, we've got no problems. And just try and almost continue as they were before the game. Don't reset, because they were playing so well. I suppose what we can do is we can look back and say, well, had Rangers won that game, then this league would have been not over, but a very, very, very strong position that Rangers would have found themselves in. 5 points. That would have been a really, really tough one with 9 games to go for Celtic to overcome. But listen, it didn't happen that way. Rangers have got a man they should have signed in the winter window there, Lawrence Shankland, to thank for that. So maybe that's worked out quite well. I thought he was absolutely unbelievable. I've been saying on here for 2 years, Derek, that the Rangers should sign Lawrence Shankland. And I think when I first started saying it, the comments would be filled up with people saying, he's not good enough. What are you talking about? You're a fool. Stop talking rubbish. And I don't think there'll be too many people saying that now. One of the few things that I have got to correct, Derek. He's just been absolutely insanely good this season. And you can imagine this Rangers side under Philippe Clement with a really, really, really reliable goal scorer, someone who needs 1 or 2 chances a game to get a goal, rather than, and I know I've been a big critic of Dessers, Derek, but I just don't think Dessers is good enough. And I think
can't rely on him.
Games when Derek, he scores a couple and people say, no, you've got it wrong. He is good enough. Look what he's doing. Look at his work off the ball and all that. But there'll be games like that, Motherwell, where you need your number 9 to step up. You need him to stand tall and put in a couple of goals in a game that's quite marginal. I just don't think Dessers is that guy. Whereas Shankland for me, or Miovski at Aberdeen, I think those two are better than anything Rangers have. If you could go and get those two in the summer, I know Aberdeen would be almost impossible to deal with, but the way Aberdeen are going, they're going to have relegation on their minds at the moment. So you never know how that's going to pan out. But I think Rangers are going to have to go in and try and get Shankland in the summer. I think it would be dereliction of duty if they don't. And I can't imagine Philippe Clement isn't looking at what this guy is doing in our league and saying, what would Hearts want from him in the summer? He's got 12 months left. £2 million?
Well, yeah. Well, the money wasn't there in January to go and buy him, so I can understand why they weren't able to go and get him.
January's different though, Derek, because the whole thing about the January thing, Hearts wanted a premium.
I know.
Because they wanted to, it had to be huge to make it worthwhile selling a player that was going to score so many goals for them. That's such a huge part of their team. They can change their team in the summer if they need to, and they can plan for that. So it's a totally different situation. And I think he'll be available for a lot less. Maybe 2 million's being slightly optimistic. I think maybe 2.5 or something like that. But I think Shankland's absolutely worth that.
Yeah, lots of comments coming in with regards to that. Just on the striking situation, Denzel says, you have to wonder how Clement felt when no goal scorer was bought in the window. Too professional to show, but surely he isn't happy. And Gordon, with the point here, he says, if he had Shankland, would be romping this league against a really average Celtic team.
Derek, that's really interesting, that first point. Can you flash that one up again? Because,
yes.
Listen, I wasn't there, so I've only heard this second hand, right? So take it with a pinch of salt. But I did hear that Philippe Clement was asked at his night with
that thing the other night
about how much budget he had to spend.
Yeah.
In the window, and he said 0.
Yeah.
And in fact, he had to be very creative and go into the budget that he has for the summer, which I presume he's talking about
Diamandi.
Because obviously it's an option to buy. Not an option, sorry.
Obligation.
It's written in the contract that he's bought.
Yeah.
So I think he's just not been able to get the quality that he wants in terms of a number 9. I'm absolutely not having Silva as a number 9. I think he's a really tidy player. I think he could be really, really good for someone down the line. But he is not a number 9. He is not a natural launch Shankland, Miovski, put your hat on him scoring. He's a clever player who can float into the 10, float wide, play a number of positions. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in midfield as his career goes on. He's one of those clever players. He's definitely not the goal scorer that you hang your hat on. And I don't think Rangers were wrong to sign him, because I think there's clearly talent there.
Yeah.
But not the guy that you're going to say is going to score you the goals to win a title. And I think we've already seen that based on the return that we've had from him.
Yeah. I'm with you on Silva. Incidentally, when we've done the Q&A in the members channel yesterday, there was a comment saying, would you bring Silva in on loan next season? I think the jury's still out. I want to see a bit more from him between now and the end of the season before making my mind up on that, and whether, of course, Wolves will want to play ball. But Rangers, there's no doubt about it, need a proper number 9 in the summer. Just on what Clement said, Ian backs it up. He says, that's correct, guys. I was there. Good night had by all accounts from what I'm hearing. There was a point as well coming in just on when you touched on Dessers there, Jonny, just with Thursday night approaching, of course, and we're mentioning Fabio Silva. Clement possibly has a bit of a selection dilemma. Kemar Roof is an option as well. Whether he starts him or not, it remains to be seen. But David Andrews says, Derek, would you prefer Dessers on Thursday night or a prime Jean-Claude Darcheville? Give me Darcheville every day of the week, David.
I totally agree with that, Derek. Darcheville any day of the week, but he's still another one who...
He was probably missed
players that will get you the sack, Derek. That the guys that are able to turn it on one week and then be anonymous the next week. They drive me mental. And if I'm a football manager, that's the kind of player that I'm wanting to minimise in my squad, because you never know what you're going to get. And Darcheville was a little bit like that. He could be a 10 out of 10 or he could be a 2 out of 10. Desser's very similar. I think that point you make about Roof, maybe you could just get something out of Kemar Roof.
Yeah.
One of the things that was interesting yesterday that we've not touched on is Kemar Roof's Instagram.
I was going to mention that leads us nicely onto that. Interesting, wasn't it? I never noticed that at the time, Jonny, but obviously with the camera shots, you can see he's been grappled in the penalty area when he got that shot away. I thought he should have scored, but you can understand why he never. When Mugabe's all over him, there's another player holding him back as well. It looks like was it Paul McGinn also trying to hold him back as well. That's a penalty in my book, Jonny.
Listen, still images certainly look damning, don't they?
Yeah.
I have to say, I thought at the time that he was getting held back, and clearly he claimed for it in the moment. It's certainly those pictures that he's put up, and he's put up about 5. It's not like one still, Derek. It's like 5 or 6 stills. That just looks like a penalty to me. I'd need to see it back, slowed down on video, because you're always reticent to make a call based on a picture. But I remember thinking, even though he got the shot away, by that time the keeper had come out, he looked like, to me, he was pretty seriously impeded there, and that was backed up by the pictures. So I think it definitely could have been a penalty, Derek.
Yeah, I think, looking at those images, I think he's got a shout. The thing that, when I was on doing the Q&A show yesterday, Ali was on with me, and he mentioned something that was quite interesting with regards to, we're talking about the McCausland tackle and players not surrounding the referee, and perhaps, I mean, we are told religiously that they shouldn't do that, and it's bad etiquette and what you like and what have you, but you can influence a referee's decision and make him go to the monitor, perhaps. You think, I don't think there was too many claims when Roof got that shot away that a penalty should have been awarded, and ditto with the McCausland tackle as well. Jonny, should his teammates maybe be trying to influence the referee in that situation?
Yeah, I think they should, because I think if you see the players going mad about something, then it's automatic that the TV cameras will pick it up, and then VAR will go, oh, we better get on this one. Look at the reaction. So yeah, I would say that's something that's going to have to come back into the game a little bit. Of course, the argument is, well, is there any point, because they're going to check it anyway? But I think you see that as an example of something. How quickly did they check it? You know, I've seen without naming incidents, you know, having been to these off the record SFA briefings where they show you the audio of certain incidents. You know, there has been incidents that I've seen where referees have kind of made up their mind immediately, and they watch it back and they're saying the same thing over and over again. So yeah, I think it's something that from a gamesmanship point of view, try to pick my words carefully here, that you'll probably see come back into football a little bit more.
Yeah, I think especially the McCausland tackle. I mean, you've seen everybody. We've seen Bobby Madden coming out yesterday, Dermot Gallagher, and this guy, pundits on the Ref Watch feature that they do, saying it was all a red card, but the referee and VAR didn't even deem it a foul, which is staggering. Peggy McPhail incidentally says any word of McCausland's injury. Not as yet. I know he left in crutches, didn't you, at the weekend, but we'll get an update, of course, when we hear from Philip Clement when he's speaking tomorrow evening. That press conference will take place, folks, when the Rangers jet out to Lisbon ahead of the game on Thursday evening. So we should get a clearer understanding about who is available and what Ross's situation is. But doesn't paint Scottish football in a good light, Jonny, when the manager comes out and says he had to take him off because he's been kicked off the park.
Yeah, listen, we need our talented players in Scottish football to get more protection. I think the referees are not having a good time at the moment, to say the least. You see that the drama from the Hearts Celtic game that is going to continue for the next 6 weeks, no doubt. You see this incident at Ibrox. Look, I think that one could have definitely been a red card. It's one of those ones, I think if you're a Motherwell fan, you'll say he pulls out at the last minute. It looks like it's going to be over the top, but he doesn't pull out enough because he still connects and takes Ross McCausland out of the game. So I agree with Dermot on that one. I think it is a red card. I think it's a dangerous challenge, a dangerous way to go in, and we see the injury, and so it speaks for itself. But I think it would be dangerous to go down the route as some other kind of as you see in elsewhere of blaming a decision for failing to beat a team that you massively out-resource.
Yeah,
you know, it's nothing to do why Rangers didn't beat Motherwell. You know, Rangers should still beat Motherwell. It's as simple as that. At Ibrox, 11 against 11. It's irrelevant what Casey or any other Motherwell player does. It should be. It's absolutely in Rangers' hands, is what I'm trying to say. And complaining about the SFA and referees and decisions, some will go for you and some will go against you, as we see every season. And I think it's better to look at the reasons why that game went wrong. And for me, as I've already said, Derek, I just think it was a freak game. I just think fundamentally Rangers missed too many chances and were leaky at the other end. I think the boy Theo Bair, by the way.
Yeah, he had a decent game, didn't he?
He was excellent. One of the best Scottish non-Celtic performances that I've seen from a striker for a good while, Derek. Especially as a target man, as a big sort of physical unit.
Yeah.
Goldson was. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful, but he was battered around the place, wasn't he?
He was. Yeah.
Which you just never see from Connor Goldson. That was a bit of an eye opener, that one, because people talk about Suter and Goldson. I think they're really good with the ball at their feet, especially Suter, to be fair, who really does add something, doesn't he, when he's striding out from the back. But in terms of that sort of big, robust striker, I think that's the kind of player they sometimes struggle to deal with. I prefer Leon Balogun in there for that kind of player. I think he does a better job. People talking about in the comments about Nico Katic.
Bring him home.
Well, that to be fair to people talking about Katic, that is the kind of battle that Katic would lap up.
Yeah.
But the problem with Katic is if you're asking him to bring out the ball from the back, and Rangers need centre backs who can ping it and who can play it quickly. And if they don't do that, then everything else breaks down and it's kind of too slow. And we're always going on about this against the low block. It needs to be quick. And so that's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Rangers don't have the money to go out and get a player who is super fast, who can pass the ball really well, but can also defend like a lion. There's not many of those guys floating about, is there?
Yeah, unfortunately for Katic, like many players at Ibrox, injury really put paid to his time there. He didn't really recover from that long-term injury that he had, which is immensely unfortunate. He was a big, likeable character, and still keeps an eye out on the Rangers' results. We'll just wrap up with another bit of Instagram activity, Jonny. Todd Cantwell obviously posted it not only at Instagram, I noticed on Twitter as well. It says he is ready to come back. You had the little emojis back soon with a bit of a compilation of some of his moments in a Rangers jersey. The sooner he is back, the better, Jonny, because Rangers are incredibly light in that area of the pitch with Oscar Cortez. Unlikely to see him again this season. Will we see him in a Rangers jersey again? Remains to be seen. But Rangers are very light in especially the wide areas and that sort of creative midfield roles. Leesky with the point as well says, do we have any wingers? Silva, Zach Lovelace and Dujon are our only options. Scott Wright is another, but we know he has his limitations. McCausland, we need to see whether he's going to be out for an extended period of time. That is a concern for me, Jonny. Injuries, as I mentioned earlier on, there's so many quality players out at this moment in time. That's not even mentioning Sima and Danilo. Rangers are struggling with regards to that. You mentioned it as well, that the injury situation. It's something that has plagued the club for too long now.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, there's no doubt that Cantwell is a level above in terms of talent. I've talked about this before. Yeah. So many players that are in the Scottish game, and if you don't have him, you miss him. So he's one that you want to see back. I was just looking up Abdullah Sima because I remember at the time that he was out, Rangers were saying that it was 2 to 3 months after his thigh surgery. So I was just looking up the dates, Derek, to see ambitiously when that might be. And they said that on the 24th of January. So I think the earliest you could see him would be in about 3 weeks' time. But we've not heard anything about him being out in the pitch yet. So maybe that's now looking a little bit ambitious and we're pushing into the 3 months rather than the 2 months. So again, that might be one that's interesting to ask Philip Clement about ahead of the game over there in Portugal. So, listen, injuries are something Rangers are going to need to look at pretty seriously. And with this manager, I think they will. I've asked him about it personally a couple of times, and he's always given detailed answers, but you've always felt that he's kind of holding something back a little bit. I don't think he's been impressed with the condition of the players when he arrived. Don't think he was impressed the fact that they weren't using cryo chambers, etc., all the things that they've got at their disposal. I don't think he was too impressed with some of these cultures that were at the club in terms of fitness. I don't think he's too impressed with the refereeing, and I don't think he's probably too impressed with the pitches. I think there's myriad problems, and he'll probably look at it and say, based on what I've seen so far, that he needs a big squad, because I think Philippe Clement will look at the injuries and think, I need to mitigate this as much as possible if I'm going to be a success here over 2 or 3 seasons, and I need to be able to switch players around.
Yeah.
I think what you've seen under his reign so far is pretty much everyone has got a chance. There's never been someone that's been completely out in the woods, as it were, just not being involved. The players tend to come back in. We've seen Ridvan look like he was out of contention for quite a long time. Then he's come back in. He's been in incredible form. Dujon Sterling was not getting a sniff. He comes back in. He looks really good. And all of a sudden, you're starting to see multiple players switching over. The one that doesn't fall into that would be Ben Davies, who we've just not seen anything of. Leaks, he's asking about that in the comments. He's not injured. He's back. He's just not been selected. So that's one that you would say as a guy that Rangers, I'm sure, would look to move on if they can. Yeah. But as we've discussed in previous windows, Ben Davies has got stuff going on and not necessarily going to be that keen to move on a big salary. And, you look down at the English Championship. I was looking at some documentation. I was down in Sunderland recently. Rangers would have, I think, the 3rd or 4th highest wage bill in the English Championship. The only teams that would be bigger are the ones that have come down from the Premier League. So
Leicester, Leeds, Southampton for a start.
But they're not far off. It's not far off. Rangers at 62 million or something like that. It's even Leeds, Southampton, and Leicester. I think Leicester's at 100, but the other two are like 70. There's not much difference, and that's why Ben Davies would struggle to find a Championship club, because he's not going to go to one of those ones that's been buoyed by the Premier League parachute money. He's going to go to a Preston or a team like that, and to match his wages is going to be very difficult.
Yeah,
because they're not insignificant.
Yeah, lots of comments come in. Bluebells or Blue says Davis is useful for Europe, but not up to the physicality of the SPFL. Yeah, he is. However, I would be. I'm not too sure how I feel about flinging him in on Thursday night when he's not played for the best part of. Well, has he played? I can't remember the last time he played. Let us know in the comments, folks. But it's been several weeks now. Have we seen him after the winter break? I don't think we have we?
I can't remember, Derek, offhand, to be honest. I'm obviously not following it as closely as I once did.
I can't remember seeing him. Betis, of course, he had a good game at the back, but that aside, I can't remember starting for Rangers. But let us know in the comments. And just to wrap up, just on Sima, incidentally, he is, the manager did say he's good, he's getting better and better, he's on schedule. I don't want to put a time scale on that. It's a little bit too early, but next week for the first time, he's going to go on the grass for the first time without the ball. So that's his normal program. So training on his own on the grass, but he's some weeks away before we can get him back in the matchday squad, I would imagine. And CGM 55, an interesting point that you need to ask Clement about Dowell. He could be decent on the left, our front three. Yeah, good point. He's another one you would mention came in from the cold, Johnny, when the Rangers had a bit of an injury crisis. December time, they came in, did well. The Motherwell game springs to mind where he scored at Fir Park, of course, and it was looking good before picking up that injury heading out to La Manga on that pitch, which wasn't the best. And now he's been out for typical of Rangers' injury situation. He's been out since then. So, yeah, good point, buddy. We'll try and get an update on Kieran Dowell because he could.
I think that's long term, though, Derek. I think that was just quite a serious injury he suffered on that La Manga pitch. So, yeah, I don't think we'll see him again this season.
Yeah, well, there you go then.
I may be wrong about that. That's not. I don't have information on that. But just from at the time, from the way it was pitched, it was pitched as it's a long-term injury. He needs surgery.
Yeah,
there was no time frame put on it. I don't think it's going to be a quick one.
Yeah, so don't hang your hat on that one, buddy. Right, folks, I think that will do us there. Huge thanks to everyone for interacting with the show as ever. It is greatly appreciated. Thanks to Jonny as well. Great having you back on, Jonny.
No, it's been good to be on, Derek. I've still got a bit of a cough. I've had this sort of cold stroke flu thing for about 5 days now, and I'm still a bit struggling with it. I don't know if anyone else has got it. It seems to be going around. Josh has it, so... Aye, it's not the best. Avoid it if you can.
Yeah, I'll try to. Right, folks, thank you as ever. Lots on the website, as I mentioned earlier on, that great piece from Chris on Alex Ray. On the YouTube channel, I spoke to, there's a Rangers fan who's a Benfica season ticket holder, which was interesting to chat to him. Also spoke to a Benfica podcaster as well to look ahead to Thursday night's opponents. So do go and check it out. We will be back tomorrow. Chris is making his way over to Lisbon today, so hopefully we should have him on the video tomorrow as we begin the build-up to that game on Thursday. But for now, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Bye for now.